everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sharon, and this is a channel that is dedicated to all things related to narcissism. I've been married to a covert narcissist for almost 20 years. I'm separated from him now, and what I do with this channel is I use my real life experiences to get information out there to people about what narcissism really is, what it looks like, what it does to you, and what it does to your family. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about shame, the shame that you feel because you were in or are in an abusive relationship. During the relationship, or at least this is how it was with me, I didn't feel shame. I felt confused. I couldn't understand why my husband was doing things that he was doing. The last 2 years of the relationship were very stressful. It was horrible. It was really a nightmare. I was living in hell. My husband was giving me near constant silent treatments, and even when he wasn't giving me a silent treatment, he was emotionally cold and cruel. He was bad with the kids. He was so terrible. At the last year of the relationship, he didn't even sleep in bed with me. I kicked him out of the bed. He was living in the basement. I couldn't stand to have him come near me. So he lived in the basement, and I live in New Hampshire. It gets cold in the winter in the basement. You know, it's not heated down there. It's not a finished basement. I have a thermometer down there. It's like 50 degrees there in the winter. He just lived there. He didn't care. He wasn't trying to make his life better. There were many times I thought to myself, I cannot believe that living in a 50-degree basement, sleeping on an old couch down there, does not motivate him to improve his life, to actually talk to me. He would rather continue on with silent treatments. Now that I'm out of the relationship and I know things about narcissism, I understand that the reason he did that is because he is mentally unwell. He doesn't have the ability to have a real conversation to improve his life. Narcissism is a permanent disability. It's a serious mental illness. People who have narcissism are never going to be able to make decisions in their best interest. They only do things that they'll use other people, and they'll just try to use other people's hard work to get by in life. They have no motivation. So for him, his life was, if I was living in the basement, I would have severe motivation to get my life back on track. For him, it was kind of like, all right, now I live in the basement. Just like today, he lives in his car. That also, I could not live in my car. I could not live in my car for a prolonged period of time and be mentally sound. It would motivate me tremendously to do whatever I had to do to get out of this situation. For him, somebody who is so severely mentally ill, no, now I live in my car. All right, I live in the car. I rent a hotel once a week so I can take a shower. That's his attitude. I don't see my kids anymore. All right, that's all right. I don't see my kids anymore. This is how he thinks. So today, now that I'm not in the relationship anymore and I'm not living in this crazy environment, shame hits me full force. It's embarrassing. I can't believe I lived this way for so long. And I can't sit here and tell you, well, I just didn't know. I had no idea. That's not true. I did know, but I felt trapped. Crucially, I felt like I couldn't get out. There was nothing I could do. My pastor had told me so many times, Sharon, you have to get out of this relationship. You cannot be with this person. He is a bum. He's not, you could get someone better. Please, really do not stay in this relationship. You don't have to stay in this relationship. And I would agree with him. I knew it was true. But at the same time, I thought, well, I can't. Other people can leave this type of relationship. I can't. I felt trapped. I felt like I couldn't take care of my kids financially was the huge problem that I had, because for a long time I was a stay-at-home mother. So I had lost all those years working. Thank God, and this, I've said before, I'm thinking about making a video on so much divine intervention that I've had because I feel so blessed despite everything. The last few years, I started making a lot of financial changes. I realized I couldn't depend on him. There's somewhere I really want to go on vacation very desperately, and my husband kept promising me he was going to take me on this vacation to this place. And every year would pass and we couldn't go. And I recognized one day that he's never going to take me on this vacation. So I started saving up myself. I started a business so that I could raise money to do this. There were two things I wanted to do. I wanted to go to this particular place on vacation, and I wanted to start an alpaca breeding business. And I knew I couldn't count on him. So I started a business. Thank God I started this business. And then on top of that, I also started hoarding money. Anytime I could get money, like anytime I had money, like if I was grocery shopping, like I have a grocery budget. So if I went under, I would take that money and just hold on to it. So I had opened up my own checking account. I had my own savings account. Then I got credit cards. So I got my own credit cards that he was not on them. He didn't even know I had them. I never used them. So I had a large available amount of money that I could take if I needed to. So when the relationship was over, and this is the thing to understand, if you're in a relationship like this, if you're in a relationship with somebody who is mentally unwell, you cannot predict when the relationship is going to be over. You don't have any control over anything in the relationship. The day my relationship ended was one day in December of 2019. When I woke up that day, I didn't know the relationship was going to be over. I had no idea. I was still thinking he was going to be living in the basement and this was going to be my life because I didn't think I could leave. Well, I've had other videos about this, so I'm just going to briefly go over what happened. He came home from work that day and he was in a terrible mood. He was ignoring me and I told him he had to leave. I was yelling at him and I was telling him exactly what I thought about him, and he got very angry and started hurting himself. He started banging his head on the wall over and over. I was very afraid. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I called the police. So the police came, and when they came, he told the police that I had beat him up. He filed a false police report against me. The police didn't believe him. There's a huge size difference between us. I wouldn't have been able to do this, but he still persisted in doing this. So Child Protective Services got involved. At that point, I kicked him out. That was the last time he lived at the house. So this was in December of 2019. He's been living in his car ever since. Since then, I've survived. All this time, I didn't think I was going to be able to make it without him. The week after he left, I started getting a lot of bills in the mail, bills that he hadn't paid, including my mortgage. He hadn't paid anything. I was getting notices from the electric company that my power was going to be shut off. I had no idea. He was the one that paid the bills. I believed he was paying the bills. So if I didn't have that vacation fund, if I didn't have money from my business, if I didn't have those credit cards, I wouldn't have been able to pay any bills. I would have lost my house. I don't know what I would have done. So if you're in a relationship like this, please start thinking you don't have control. You need to make choices, decisions that will benefit you and benefit your children if you have them. Start squirreling away money. You're with somebody you can't trust. Now, that was a little side note. I'm going to get back to the shame, but it's important if that's you. Don't make the mistake I made, staying so long in a relationship because you were afraid, because you didn't think you could make it on your own, because you really don't have any control in the relationship anyways. You only have control over what you do. So if you can't leave today, fine, but please start taking money, holding money aside. It's so crucial for your future, for your safety, because you don't know what's going to happen. So when the relationship is over, this is when shame hits. Now, shame has hit me full force. I'm so embarrassed that I was in this relationship for so long. I hate myself in some ways for staying with somebody so worthless. He would constantly lie to me, constantly manipulate me, constantly cause all these problems, and I would always forgive him. I had no self-esteem. I'm a completely different person today than I was even a year ago, and particularly 2 or 3 years ago. But now I'm dealing with the shame. And this is something that happens to people. This is part of ending a relationship with an abusive person. My husband is not the only relationship I've ever been in. I've been in other relationships, and I never sat around for long periods of time going over the relationship in minute detail, trying to figure out what happened, why I did this, why he did this, why didn't I see this, why didn't I feel like I could leave, how did I get so beat down by somebody that I completely lost myself? Where did those 20 years go? Because in some ways I feel like somebody who, was in a coma and they wake up 20 years later and everything has changed. That's how I feel sometimes, and you have to learn to live again. Or like somebody who is paralyzed and they're able to, they're one of these people that can learn to walk again. They broke their back, but they can walk again, and they're learning and they're taking these baby steps. That's me. That's you if you're recovering from a narcissistic or other abusive relationship. The reason for this is because if you suffer abuse, you suffer brain damage. This is why, I used to think that an abusive relationship was only physical violence, that if you were not beat up, if nobody struck you, that it wasn't an abusive relationship. I now understand that abuse comes in many forms. So whether it is physical or emotional abuse, it's still abuse. When you're abused, it affects your brain always. You're in an abusive relationship, your brain is saturated with cortisol. You have stress hormones running through your body all the time. It can cause actual brain damage. It can be reversed, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But what happens is your hippocampus shrinks and your amygdala grows. So your amygdala is the part of your brain that controls the fight or flight. So when you have a constant, steady stream of stress, you are left, your brain doesn't know what to do. You're not thinking clearly because it's not, typically this would happen in a brief moment, like say I was taking a walk down the street and I saw a bunch of angry looking men come towards me. Well, my body's going to react right then. Or if I was outside in the woods and I saw a bear, right? My brain's going to tell me, get out of there. It's going to be that fight or flight. Should I run? Should I try to attack? What should I do? But when it's always flooding you, it's always flooding your brain, you're going to end up with chronic confusion, anxiety, anger, and panic attacks. This is just some of what happens to you. The sad reality is that to get over this, to deal with this, you have to accept that there's going to be a period of suffering. It's like accomplishing any good task. Say I smoked cigarettes and I wanted to quit smoking, or if I was quitting drinking or drugs, or I needed to lose weight, whatever it is, you have to accept that you're going to go through a period. Like say I was a drug addict, I have to go through withdrawal to get better. I can't just skip over that. If I needed to lose weight, I'm going to be hungry sometimes, right? Like say I was training for a marathon, my muscles are going to be sore, especially when I'm first trying to do this. I'm first working out. There's always something. I taught myself a second language, and when I was doing it, it was hard work to do that. I would spend 2 hours a day, every day, studying this language, and it was hard because I was doing it by myself, and it was stressful, and I felt like sometimes I'm not going to be able to get through this, and I didn't want to get up early to do it, but I persevered. If you persevere in anything, you can accomplish it. You can make tremendous strides in anything that you want if you dedicate yourself, if you understand, okay, it's gonna hurt, right? Like if I'm gonna lose weight, it's gonna hurt. I'm gonna be hungry. I'm gonna want to have cake or cookies, whatever you want, right? You're gonna have to deal with that. If I was a drug addict, if I smoked, like I used to smoke cigarettes a long time ago. Now, when I was actually one of the lucky ones, because when I quit smoking, the day I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, I just never smoked another cigarette. So I was lucky in that regard because I had a motivation. I had a motivating factor. So if you look at your life in terms of getting your life back on track, that can be your motivating factor. So if you can accept that there is going to be a period of time where it's going to hurt, start making better decisions, because the shame is going to be there until you start moving past it. I feel a lot of shame because I often wonder what other people think of me. If my husband had died in a car accident or he had died in some way and I was a widow instead of separated and then divorced, people would still have respect for me. I feel like people wonder, oh, well, she couldn't hold on to her husband. What happened? Why isn't he around anymore? Because a lot of people that I know, not everybody, but a lot of people know my husband. So they'll think, well, he seemed like a good guy. What happened? Why is she alone all the time? They don't understand, and they're never going to understand because he's mentally ill. And I'm not going to go tell everybody. And even the people that I have told, it's confusing to them, they don't get it. So I feel embarrassed, but I understand also that in order to move forward, I need to not worry about what other people think. And that's a hard thing, but that is part of the suffering aspect of getting over it. There is that period of suffering in anything that you want to accomplish, any good thing that happens. So the first step is identify what's happening. Identify that you've been abused and accept that you're going to have a period of suffering. Understand that you have no power to change somebody else's thoughts. So if you're worried about what other people think of you, and I do that, I'm not going to lie and tell you that I don't. I do think about this. I have to accept. I can't control what anybody else thinks. They don't know what really has happened in my life. They don't know what it was really like to live with somebody so mentally ill, to be woken up by the police, to be accused of a crime you didn't commit, to have to go and visit your husband in a mental hospital. They don't know. They don't know what it was like to have somebody crazy living with them, scaring them. They don't know. And I had said to my pastor one time recently, because I told him that I get embarrassed coming to church because it's embarrassing for me to have it just be my kids and I walking into the church when there's families going around us. I feel less than. I feel like people look down on us. And then I said, but I guess at the same time, I don't really know what's going on in their life. Maybe they have miserable marriages. And he said, yeah, some of them really do. You have no idea. And so that made me feel bad saying that made me feel better. It doesn't make me feel better that somebody has a bad marriage, but it makes me feel better in the sense that, yeah, nobody really does know anybody else. Nobody knows what it's like. I have to live my own life, my own reality. If I just feel shame and worry about what other people think, I can't move on and be the person that I want to be. You need to have compassion on yourself. You need to understand you did the best that you could. It's so painful for me to look back at 20 years. I actually made a step. I realized I made a step yesterday. I was out at the mall with my kids and I got a text from my husband. Now, I actually got a text from Satan because that's how he's programmed into my phone. So I had this little ding for a text. I look in and Satan had sent me a text that said, I love you. Now, when he sent the text, I didn't know what to say. I was confused. I just ignored it for a long time. And then I wrote back to him later that night and I said, why did you send me that text? I don't know what to think about it. And what happened was the day before, I had taken my daughter to the doctor and she got a prescription that insurance didn't cover. So when I went to pick it up, it was $600. So I couldn't believe it. So I called my husband at work because that's how we get insurance through his job. And I was asking him about it. I was like, well, what are we going to do? This costs $600. Can you look into this? So he knew I was stressed out about that. So he said to me, well, I sent you that text because I knew that would make you feel better. So that, it hit me in two ways. One, I'm like, all right, he thinks that all he needs to do is say, I love you, and that is going to make me feel better. And in the past, it would have. In the past, I would have thought to myself, oh my gosh, he does love me. It doesn't matter that he's abused me or been incredibly cruel or doesn't want to have anything to do with the kids. He loves me. I know it. This is great news. So that was a big movement for me, actually. It was a big excitement in a way because I knew that didn't affect me anymore. I had reached a new level and that felt good, and we can all get there. So that's just an example of something that happened to me, but that can happen to you too. Remember, you determine your future. Think of the person that you want to be and be that person now. I really believe in the fake it till you make it. There are a lot of days that I don't feel good, but if I just sit in my depression, if I sit in my shame, if I sit in feeling bad, I'm not going to be able to move forward. It's painful to me that I've lost 20 years. But God willing, I have a lot more time ahead of me. I'm not 80 years old. But even if I was 90 years old, I would never want to stop living because of an age, because of a number. I have a new lease on life, and so do you. If you're still in the relationship, you don't have to stay there permanently. You determine your future. You know, therapy can also be helpful if you get the right therapist. I never want to discount that. And there's a lot of great self-help books out there. I want everybody to get over this and understand that a narcissist cannot hold you back. If you're held back, it's because of yourself. So think about that. Take control of your life. Everything can be okay. We can all accomplish all the goals that we want. The power has always been in you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm so grateful for everybody who has. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if all goes well, I will see you on Friday, and I hope everybody has a great day. God bless.